finals of the CFP are set. Ninth-ranked Alabama will face the #1 Hoosiers. Here's Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer on the improvements his defense has made this season. Take a listen. It's new on SportsCenter.
It was early in the season where our guys defensively just kind of kept taking those steps, and through conference play, you know, got the turnovers in big moments that helped us win games. You know, the stops that were needed, forcing field goals, and I think, you know, that continued to breed a kind of a belief at a high level, and that's a mindset, you know, that no matter where you step on the football field, you know, you're just going to play that play it to the best of your ability, and our guys do that.
Paul Finebaum and Heather Dinich are here for more. Heather, we just heard Kalen DeBoer talk about that defense. What threat does Alabama present to the Hoosiers after how they closed out against Oklahoma?
Well, the threat they present is how they continue to find ways to win with game-changing plays in all three phases. I mean, you look at the blocked punt, you talk about the interception, and their ability to continue to make plays that make a difference. Also, that fourth down touchdown was incredible. So offense, defense, special teams. But all of this in spite of averaging just 1.1 yards per carry, 2 of 12 on third downs. These are not national title numbers. But if they continue to make those types of plays in all three phases, they can continue to advance.
And Heather, I wonder about the layoff for Indiana. Last year, as we all know, the 4-bye teams didn't win. Now, some of those were special circumstances, but Indiana has been sitting around going, hey, we're the #1 team in the country. Does anybody take us seriously? And that's another question that I wonder. I'm in Alabama today, and some of the fans that I've talked to are going, we have to play Indiana. They're not really intimidated by that because this is Alabama. I don't think that's going to be an issue because Kalen DeBoer once coached in Indiana, and he'll get his players' attention. But that layoff and wondering about Indiana is going to be an interesting factor to consider.
Paul, you talk about the fans and how they might view Indiana. However, how much of a threat is Indiana to this Alabama team that pretty much everyone has grown accustomed to them to win these types of games?
Well, they ought to be a factor because Indiana has beaten Oregon and Ohio State, and that's pretty impressive. Alabama has a list of very impressive wins as well, but I think the Alabama people will say we've had a tougher schedule. But Indiana going on the road to Oregon, beating Ohio State is very significant, and their defense is so elite. And also, let's give Curt Cignetti a little bit of credit. I mean, he's one of the premier coaches in the country, and that is a factor in this game.
And meanwhile, it was a massive win for Miami over Texas A&M. However, they are massive underdogs versus Ohio State. Heather, what storylines are you following for this big matchup?
Well, I think it starts with the head coaches. Ryan Day has been there, won that, and Mario Cristobal took a major step forward, not just for Miami, but for the entire ACC when they beat the Aggies. And then I'm also going to be paying attention to both defenses because they are both outstanding. Ohio State is holding its opponents to about 8 points per game, and Miami's defense is one of the big reasons why it's in the playoff and can advance in the playoff. Last year, it kept them out of the playoff, but when you look at their defensive line in the interior and on the edge, the way they get pressure, if they can keep that up for 4 quarters, they've got a chance in this game because offensively, they've got the playmakers, I think, to go toe-to-toe.
And Heather, as significant as Alabama's comeback was, I frankly think what Miami did at Kyle Field was even more significant because that is a tougher place to play. That was against a team that a lot of us a couple of weeks ago thought might be the best team in the country. So this is a dramatic opportunity for the U, for Coach Cristobal. His defense was so good in that game. But of all the storylines I'm following, I want to make this really personal here. I'm wondering, where is Amina going to be on New Year's Eve watching this game? Because I would like a camera on her.
Look, I might actually be here, but I'll tell you right now, you don't want to put the camera on me, Paul, because it's going to be a lot of cussing and a lot of things that should not be said on TV. But hopefully, they come away with a win, and you won't have to hear any of that, Paul. Just really quickly before we go, Heather, when you take a look at this matchup, you mentioned the defense. Where is this game going to be won? That's what I'm really curious about.
Well, I think to me, it's up front. It's always up front, right? But also on both sides of the ball, in terms of the quarterbacks, when you look at Carson Beck, and we keep going back to this, but the reality is those 2 losses, he had 6 interceptions. And he has been fantastic at moments, but there's also been times when he struggled. And I think if they win the turnover battle, they limit their mistakes, and they really get the pressure on defensively, I think that can be the difference in the game.
Yeah, the trenches are going to be super important in this matchup. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I'm just really focused on the defense of Ohio State and whether Carson Beck can deal with the back end, because they are the best in the country.
Yeah, we're going to get a camera for me, Paul, so that you can see my reactions throughout the game. And then we'll get a bleeper button also so that we can keep it clean for TV. Heather and Paul, Finebaum with the latest. Thanks so much, guys.
Coming up, Luka Doncic left Saturday.
Patterson and Chip, you have some burning questions for each game. Let's get into those games, and we'll start off with the Cotton Bowl. You get Ohio State and Miami. What are you looking at?
Can the Miami Hurricanes, which absolutely dominated Texas A&M up front in the second half, can they get a push and really cause some pressure for Ohio State quarterback Julian Sayin? And the reason why I think that this is so important is not just the obvious strength that we have with Ruben Bain and Akeem Messidor and the rest of those Miami defensive linemen. It's also because one of the reasons why Ohio State does not have the number 1 seed in this playoff bracket, one of the reasons that Ohio State did not win the Big Ten championship is because Julian Sayin was running for his life going up against that Indiana defensive front. Yes, the pressure that the Hoosiers were able to apply really disrupted the young Buckeyes quarterback. He wasn't able to get into rhythm with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, oftentimes having to break the pocket and just heave it up there and hope a 50-50 ball is caught, which, because we're talking about Ohio State's wide receivers, does sometimes happen. But that is a place where Miami can climb back into this game. Zach, Mike Elko, the Texas A&M head coach, after the game just admitted, he said, they wore us down over the course of the game, and in the second half, we couldn't do anything offensively. I think that Ohio State should be able to have a little bit more success than the Aggies, but you know football like I do. If you can't block, you can't win. Can Ruben Bain be the best player on the field? Yeah, defense showing up potentially in that game. And then you look up right down the road from us, the Orange Bowl, you get Texas Tech and Oregon. And I see that what you want to talk about here is targeting the offense. Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech's offense is the weaker part. That's not because Texas Tech's offense is bad. You don't win 12 games by 20-plus points with a bad offense, right? It's just that Texas Tech's defense is so elite that we end up doing a little bit of nitpicking. Nitpicking like Texas Tech not having a very good red zone offense in terms of getting touchdowns with those opportunities, not always being dominant, kind of spinning their wheels from time to time. But, buddy, I know the game was over and James Madison wasn't getting stops, but you even listen to the Oregon players, they are pissed with all of the scoring that the Dukes were able to do in the second half of that game. I think Dan Lanning and this coaching staff are really going to be laying into Oregon's defense to make sure that that doesn't happen again, because if Oregon does have a weakness defensively that was revealed by James Madison, they got to clean that up, because that is not at all what Oregon's defense was during the season. When I'm looking at this game, I do think that Oregon is the more balanced team. I think Oregon's got obviously Dante Moore, an NFL quarterback, where Texas Tech does not with Baron Morton. I think they've got better wide receivers, especially with DeCorian Moore back in the lineup, more so than what Texas Tech does. But what if Texas Tech's offense is going to be able to score the way James Madison did? All of a sudden, it's a lot more of a toss-up, a lot tougher to call. So for Texas Tech, what can you watch from that Oregon win that you can maybe use to get your own offense going? And if you are Oregon, buddy, tighten those screws, because you're going to need to be a lot more locked up defensively if you want to advance to the semifinals and avoid getting bounced in the quarters for a second year in a row. Yeah, Vegas certainly agrees that this one will be tightly contested at just a 1.5 for the closest spread that we've seen so far for all four of the quarterfinal games. The other game we look at now is the Rose Bowl, Indiana and Alabama. Are the Hoosiers riding a little bit too high on life right now? It's a fair human question, right? I mean, Fernando Mendoza wins the Heisman Trophy. You're lifting the Big Ten championship. We are talking about the greatest season of Indiana football ever. And it's going to be a long layoff from the confetti falling in Indianapolis all the way to the kickoff in the Rose Bowl on January 1. You've gone home. You've had the holiday season. You've had the awards circuit. So is there any kind of hangover here? It is territory, Zach, that we do not have for Indiana football. When it happens to Bryce Young and Alabama, or when it happens to one of these programs, even like an Oregon or an Oklahoma that has been in the college football playoff multiple times over,